I'm Alex Sujong Laughlin, and on every episode of my new podcast, Try Hard, I'm talking to someone about something they've always wanted to do, but haven't. Yet. First, we dig into why they want to do it and what's been getting in the way. And then, we set a challenge for them. You can listen to Try Hard from Defector Media and Radiotopia wherever you find podcasts.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
And there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
What?
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the wildest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they'd transpired today? I'm Sarah Sahagian.
And I'm Sarah Hassan, and this week is another hot off the press. That's when we do a mini-sode that discusses the craziest headlines preoccupying us right now. Okay, I'm going to run through a few quickies, and sir, if you've got any thoughts, you shoot them my way. Okay, off the top, I'm a baseball girl, okay? I know sports isn't our usual flavor on The Reheat, but I had to give a shout out to the Toronto Blue Jays. Me and Sarah are Toronto girls. They've made it to the World Series, and I couldn't be prouder. Down with the Dodgers, okay? I'm just shouting that out.
You know what? I'm just going to say, I am so happy about this, but, okay, I can never remember they're in LA. They will always be the Brooklyn Dodgers to me, okay? So, anyway, that's just it.
I love that. You're right. They're a scam of a team. So, down with them, okay? In other news, back to the pop culture of it all, Love is Blind's Lauren and Cameron, who may be the only true couple to have lasted from the reality show, are having a baby, their first, so big congrats there. And in other news, MTV is officially closing down. If that's a shock for you because you thought it shut down years ago, me too. This official shift is because folks tend to watch their music videos on TikTok and YouTube, which is wild. I teach Gen Z kids, and they've told me they will literally watch hours-long YouTube videos, and that is their preference. And I find that very bizarre as a millennial, but I get it. And that is why MTV is no longer. It's truly an end of an era, though, because that gave birth to so many of the musicians and the content that we love. So were you ever an MTV gal?
No, because I watched much music as a good Canadian kid should. I also don't even think we had MTV. I think it wasn't in our cable package. Did you watch it?
So I think so much of the content and the special programming that they had at MTV, we would get on other networks. That's what I loved. But yeah, we had MTV Canada later on, but it wasn't quite what it was in America or the UK, right? It was more reality TV. It was some special content that the Canadian networks would do, but it was never all the music. It was always ridiculousness playing again and again and again. Although I think that's how it is in the US now too. But I know it gave us TRL, and TRL gave us so many moments. As an internet kid, it's everywhere. I would Google it all the time. I watched Britney on there. I watched so many people on there. NSYNC, Justin Timberlake, the Backstreet Boys. Oh, it gave birth to a lot for us millennials. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah. TRL, as much as I didn't really watch MTV because I didn't have access to it. I was aware because it was everywhere, right?
Exactly.
It was on Access Hollywood that they'd show you clips. They'd show you clips on Entertainment Tonight. This is before the internet was as usable because I'm that much older than you. So we didn't really have YouTube until I was in university anyway. And yeah, I did know Total Request live, and I would have gone to see it live if I could have. It is iconic, but at the same time, I do think that nothing lasts forever. And I understand why this is happening.
Yeah, mediums shift, and this was inevitable. Again, there's a reason why so many of us thought it's been dead for a while. R.I.P. MTV, we loved you. You had an era. Now it's YouTube and it's TikTok. God, how times have changed. Okay, now let's dive into our first big headline. In recent weeks, model Bella Hadid had posted on her Instagram about having a bad Lyme disease flare-up, which already had some people side-eyeing because, it's a little weird when people post photos of themselves in their hospital bed, bandaged up with an IV, and I find it very bizarre. I love Bella, but I was just like, you don't need to post this. Anyway, she then walked the catwalk at the Victoria's Secret show the week after, and she looked incredible. She looked gorgeous. But again, it had many more folks very confused because she looked great. She seemed to have been cured of whatever was ailing her the week before. And she said it was tough, but she made it through. Now, here's the thing. I want to talk with you, Sarah, about the general controversy around Lyme disease, because I won't lie, I've been side-eyeing it myself for a very long time. The Hadids, particularly Yolanda, the matriarch, Bella, and Anwar. Anwar is Bella and Gigi's younger brother. They've brought widespread attention to Lyme disease over the past decade, framing it as a pretty devastating but often misunderstood illness. Yolanda, who is a former Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star, has documented her struggles with chronic Lyme on the show and positioned herself as a patient advocate. But, there was drama on the show too. For some time, her co-stars thought she had Munchausen's because she would talk frequently about this disease she was dealing with, but nobody really understood what she was talking about ever. And she just seemed to constantly be sick, constantly in bed, constantly just under the weather. So her kids have also said they experienced symptoms. Gigi's always maintained that she doesn't have it, but she feels very deeply and also guilty that her siblings have it. Their openness have helped destigmatize it and raise awareness, but again, it's just added to the controversy because it's gotten an even bigger platform. Now, many medical experts argue that, quote unquote, chronic Lyme is a poorly defined condition lacking scientific consensus, with some suggesting that prolonged antibiotic treatments can be harmful. Critics have accused celebs of spreading misinformation or turning complex medical debates into personal branding moments, which I think is certainly true. I mean, Lyme is kind of a part of the Hadid's whole family brand, which I feel a bit icky saying because I do enjoy them, minus Yolanda, but it's true. Their story also reflects, I have to say, a bigger tension in wellness culture. They've got a lot of privilege and access to alternative treatments. Not a lot of people do. And I feel like the fact that they do has helped them add to this branding. Again, it's why we get to see Bella in a hospital bed being treated for this in what might be just a really flash sudden episode that other regular people probably couldn't go and get treatment in the same way. So even though we want visibility maybe for Lyme and they're giving us that, there's not really a lot of people who can afford the same kind of treatment. But here's the other part of it. So I did put my doctor's hat on. Mind you, I have zero medical knowledge, but I Googled. I did extensive Googling to look up Lyme. So here's the thing. It's caused by a bacteria called Borrelia. And in other words, it's spread by ticks. So I think that's more common knowledge than anything else. It is very much a real disease or condition. But here's where the confusion lies, for me anyway. The standard treatment is a course of antibiotics. In other words, that's pretty simple. Treatment is most effective when started early, and for severe symptoms, antibiotics can be given intravenously in a hospital. So maybe that's what was happening with Bella. But most people with Lyme recover after their antibiotic treatment. The Hadids and some other celebs have never recovered, seemingly, no matter what treatments they try. And again, it's endless treatments and apparently includes a special diet for them too. Sir, what the hell do you make of this all? Is Lyme real to you, or is it this whole other enhanced celebrity disease?
Listen, I am not a doctor. I don't know anything about Lyme disease. I don't pretend to know much about it. I've known people with Lyme disease, and in my experience, it was quite rare, but it seems like it's all over Hollywood. Like there are lots of people. I mean, Avril Lavigne also, right? So I don't know what's happening there. Are there like more ticks in LA? This is an actual question.
I don't know. I've seen the fans who come to their defense often saying that. I don't think it's actually all that true. But I also sometimes, and again, this is where I'm speculating, if Lyme is one of those conditions that is masqueraded when someone is actually hospitalized for, let's say, exhaustion or something else, which is another, we used to hear about that all the time from Hollywood in the OOs. We never hear it anymore. And I wonder if that's because they have other things that they cover it up with.
Well, the other thing is exhaustion is real. You can be hospitalized for exhaustion. But in some of those cases, I think you were hospitalized for exhaustion. You might have been hospitalized for maybe like a drug overdose or an eating disorder or, severe dehydration from binge drinking, things like that. I think, right? Yeah. I think exhaustion was sort of this polite, diplomatic way of discussing other things that happen. And I'm not judging, drug overdoses happen, dehydration from drinking happens, like not judging. But the people who would use that excuse were often people like Lindsay Lohan, right? Yeah. Where she was already experiencing so much judgment and shame that I do not begrudge her an exhaustion excuse at all. Not at all. But I don't know. It does seem suspicious, right? And I feel terrible saying that.
I know.
Like, I don't believe you about your disability or your disease. And I'm not saying that there's a specific person I disbelieve. It's just in aggregate. I don't know if Lyme disease can be this common, right? It's just, when we look at how common it is in the general population, why do so many more celebrities get it? There doesn't seem to be a reason why they would. That has been explained to me. Are there tons of ticks on fashion runways? Like when you go to Milan Fashion Week, does everyone get Lyme disease? I want to know, okay? Where are they getting this illness? Where are they all getting the same ailments?
Yeah, exactly. I think you've nailed it down. That's what our question is. Why so many in Hollywood in particular? It is very much a real disease. I can confirm that for you, but there's something sus about it all. There's something sus. Okay, we got more juice to dig into. Let's take a quick little break.
I'm Alex Sujong Laughlin, and on every episode of my new podcast, Try Hard, I'm talking to someone about something they've always wanted to do, but haven't. Yet. First, we dig into why they want to do it and what's been getting in the way. And then, we set a challenge for them. You can listen to Try Hard from Defector Media and Radiotopia wherever you find podcasts.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
And we're back. Okay, next up. In his forthcoming memoir, You Thought You Knew, Kevin Federline, former backup dancer, levels a series of sharp and deeply personal allegations against his ex-wife, of course, Britney Spears, claiming she had erratic behavior throughout their time together, instances of substance use, even a dramatic moment in which he says she stood at their two sons' bedroom doorway holding a knife while they slept. Again, these are all his claims. They're not verified. The tone of the book has been widely criticized as cruel towards Britney, presenting her in ways she's said are, quote, extremely hurtful and exhausting, and gaslighting. She says he's gaslit her throughout so much of their relationship, even since they split, but they are co-parenting, or they were co-parenting for a period of time. He's had custody for the most part. Now, his revelations also implicate her younger sister, Jamie Lynn, who in the memoir, Kevin says, sent letters to Kevin and his wife praising the two of them for raising his and Britney's sons. She even allegedly expressed resentment toward Britney for her treatment of the boys. Again, this is all alleged, the way that they're saying she's treated the sons. But I was really surprised by the bits that Jamie apparently had said to him and his wife. And you know what? I believe it, because she's been a little sketch towards her sister for years. And that's throughout the conservatorship and after. She even implies that maybe it's a good thing Britney was in the conservatorship. Like, it's all unfortunate, let me put it that way. She also didn't talk very well. She didn't speak very well of Britney in her own memoir. And that was very controversial because people felt she was just riding on Britney's coattails with the memoir itself. And it seems like Kevin's doing the same thing. If you have to sell your books by capitalizing and talking about Britney, like, that says everything to me. Now, Britney has responded in a statement. She's denied pretty vigorously the book's portrayal of her. She's described it as a financial grab, which I think is definitely true. She called all of Kevin's claims white lies that she says, quote, are going straight to the bank. And she warned at this point her focus is on her sons and protecting herself from a narrative she feels is harmful. She also said, quote, I have always pleaded and screamed to have a life with my boys. Relationships with teenage boys is complex. I've felt demoralized by this situation. I've always asked and almost begged for them to be a part of my life. She added that she's rarely seen her boys in the last 5 years, with one son only seeing me for 45 minutes and the other with only 4 visits. And that's in the last few years. And that's while she hoped they would take initiative to reach out and build a relationship with her. She said, I have pride too. From now on, I will let them know when I am available. She also said she still very much loves them, but clearly the relationship is just super fractured. And honestly, with this book and what I've read so far, it sounds like Kevin probably doesn't speak very well of her to his children. I'm just assuming that. But Sarah, here's my question. When will any of these people leave Britney alone? I feel like she needs her own family to just be on her side. Don't talk about her. Talk about yourself if you're putting a memoir out, right?
Yeah, it's a tough situation because, I mean, Britney did have her own memoir, and I do understand why people who might have been mentioned in that then feel like they want to tell their side. I don't think that that's a great instinct, right? I feel like we should all get beyond that. But I don't know if I'm any better than wanting to do that, wanting to tell my side, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that that is a human reaction. And then in the case of somebody like Kevin Federline, because you are not a celebrity, you're, I guess, noteworthy, you're somebody that people know of, you're more infamous.
Barely.
You can get a book deal, right? So it's more the industry and the system that's kind of doing this, because it's giving all these people who aren't famous the ability to write a book that's pretty much just about Britney Spears. And that is upsetting. That is unfortunate that happens. And it's interesting to me that she calls what's in the book white lies, because a white lie is usually something you tell for the good. Like, telling your friend, oh yeah, I loved your wedding dress when you hated it, right? Like, that's a white lie because it's for the greater good. Are these lies for the greater good? Again, Jamie and Britney both weren't really allowed to finish school because sometimes you see the evidence of that, because I was going to say I would have been a little bit stronger in my language.
You know what, though? That's funny you say that. You're spot on. And it makes me think, okay, so this is her statement. Like, this must be a real statement from the mouth of Britney, which I actually find ultimately reassuring, because I hate to say it. When I read the statement, because it's quite a lengthy, solid statement, I was like, did she write it? Because as we know, she doesn't seem to have been the most coherent person the last little while, at least in the way we've seen her on social media, right? She still posts those cute little dancing videos. And, I say cute with an asterisk because they also make me a little bit sad, I'll be honest. I had to unfollow her on Instagram because it just broke my heart. She's not who she was, clearly. But if she put that statement out, that suggests she's very coherent.
Yeah.
Like, there's an element of her that's still very much there. So I don't know. That's what I'm going to take from the white lies situation, Sarah.
Yeah, it's all sad. And I want her to be able to heal. I do think that she's not maybe in a better place than she was, but I don't think she's in a great place yet, because saying of her sons that she has pride too. I mean, anyone who has read about being a parent to teens or has worked with teens knows that you literally can't have pride when you have a teenager, that you have to be there when they want you, and that teens will put on a brave face and say horrible things to you and the next day want a hug, right? Like, that is parenting. I've worked with teens extensively, and I remember having the parents of teens come with me on occasion, and most of the teens are just lovely. And you'll just say, "Oh, your teen is fantastic. You did such a great job." And they're like, "Well, I'm so glad, because at home sometimes they're not nice to me," right? But the parents are always they're not bitter about it. They understand that that's what teens are like. Where they will often, when they test boundaries, it will be with their parents before anybody else. And so I feel like if she were in a better place, she would understand that that's developmentally normal. Even when they say really awful things to you sometimes, like, there are some extreme situations. I said some extreme things to my mother when I was a teen that I regret and I'm sorry for, but are actually developmentally normal. Now that I know more parents who have teenagers, I realize, like, oh, that's actually just the way kids talk to their parents in that era when you're separating from them. So I hope she's able to get help. I also hope she's able to maybe connect with some other moms of teens that can maybe help her and make her realize that you kind of can't have pride when you have adolescents, because I do want her to have a relationship with her kids.
Yeah, I guess you're so good at seeing this without bias. I'm so deeply biased toward Britney. I can't let it go. I cannot report like a proper journalist, because the whole time I'm just like, oh, I hate Kevin and I hate Jamie Lynn, and why don't they go away? They shouldn't be writing books, because really it's only because of Britney they have any star wattage. But you are correct. It's really a systemic issue, right? When we think about Hollywood and we zoom out a little bit. And yeah, I'm not a parent, so it's harder for me to grasp that, but you're absolutely right. When you are the parent, you are the authority figure, right? Like, you birthed these children. This was your choice. You've got to be the one who gets them together. At the same time, though, if they haven't been seeing her in all this time, and she's tried so hard to just get a little bit of attention from them, and that whole side of the family is just shutting her down and out, I don't know. I can kind of empathize with how she's feeling. And also, to be clear, Jaden is 19, Sean is 20, but you're right. I mean, they're still essentially teenagers.
Your brain develops until you're 30, and it develops a lot until you're 25. So, I mean, the way we defined adolescence as a society was before we knew anything about neuroscience. So that they're very much still in that adolescent phase where nothing you really do is real. Like, I'm just saying, like, you can, but having said that, yes, they are technically adults and could contact her of their own volition. But there are so many people who've gone through less with their parents, who go through phases at that age where they don't really want to talk to their parents very much for lots of different reasons, right? I mean, there's so many people who their parents don't go through anything like Britney went through, but it's just a divorce and that's all it is. And the kids still have a lot of anger and resentment, and that's developmentally normal. So even though most of what happened to Britney is not at all her fault, and I do agree she's a victim, I think we have to, in her case, I really hope she can get to the point where she sees this from the perspective of her children, who, you're right, maybe Kevin Federline told them things about her, but even if he didn't, all they know is mom's not here, right? And so it is really hard when children, because they center themselves, and that's developmentally normal, when they don't see one of their parents, for them to understand why. I mean, I'm in an online Facebook group where a lot of the moms will post about how, like, their ex has, substance issues or other mental health problems and doesn't see the kids much. And they don't say anything defamatory about him, but the kids still hate him, right? And that's the way kids are. It takes a lot of wisdom to separate yourself when it comes to a relationship as intimate as this, and to see it objectively, right? Like, this is the most intimate relationship in the world, the parent-child relationship. And so if they are not ready to forgive her, even though I don't really think she did anything wrong, I completely understand and empathize with them.
I totally agree with you. It's also true, let's not forget that all this shit that she's been through in the last forever years, they have heard about. They're old enough to be able to hear about it from other people, to see it on the internet, to see it on social. They obviously know their mom isn't totally well, and that's got to have a massive impact on you, and she was quite young, and so was Kevin when they had them. And they weren't in the best situation, if we all remember. Lest I forget their incredible reality show together, as much as I despise this man. But this was an era where these kids grew up, and I don't know that they ever had a period of time where she wasn't in the news in a negative way. Again, even when it wasn't unfair and it wasn't true. That's got to be really, really tough. Like, I can't even imagine growing up with a parent who was in the public eye like that. So they've definitely been impacted. And maybe that's also not something she's totally able to wrap her head around. But
no,
I just want everyone to be in a better situation, please. And I hope that she eventually can get to a place where she's not having to deal with all these alleged lies and allegations and can just chill. Sarah, let's discuss one more book, one more very big book. And I know you know this one well. You've already started reading it. I haven't gotten my hands on it yet. So let's dig into some of the secrets that have been revealed from this book, just generally from people who have gotten a look at it. Now, in her posthumously published book called Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice, Virginia Giuffre delivers stark revelations of being trafficked as a teen by none other than Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. She alleges repeated sexual encounters, some while underage, with powerful men, including, of course, Prince Andrew, who she claims treated access to her as a, quote, birthright. That is rough. He, of course, has denied ever even meeting her. He says he doesn't remember her at all. She also says in the book, after one of the times when they were together, she felt quite sick. And while Epstein told her she'd had a miscarriage, one of the other girls at Epstein's home suggested the scars she had after, I guess, the operation or whatever she'd had whenever this was happening looked like she may have actually had an ectopic pregnancy. So in other words, Epstein hid whatever even happened to her physically from her. The memoir also raises pretty disturbing details about her medical treatment and trauma and was intended by Virginia to be published in the event of her death. Now, her death too is pretty controversial, maybe just in conspiracy circles, but Sarah, I'm curious what you think. She suddenly and unexpectedly died in April this past year at age 41. Her death was ruled a suicide, but many people have speculated if maybe this was a hit, if, like Jeffrey's death, there was something else going on by maybe people who wanted to cover up the truth. I'm hitting this with a heavy allegedly. We obviously don't know. Her family did confirm that it was a suicide, though. Her lawyer initially cast doubt and said that there were, quote, big question marks about whether she had shown suicidal ideation. She pointed to recent events, such as a car crash that happened just before, a custody battle she was going through, alleged abuse by her husband, and a pretty traumatic split between the two of them that she said maybe compounded her trauma. But I do want to note that after the family confirmed that it was suicide, her lawyer said that her words were misinterpreted. Sarah, I want to know what your thoughts are on all of this and what you can share from the bit that you've read so far in the book.
So I do believe she likely died by suicide. I think she was in a really awful place. Her husband had abused her, but it hadn't really gone well when the authorities got involved and she ended up losing access to her children, which was a huge, huge blow to her. She was a very, very committed mother. Having read her book, this person went through trauma her entire life. She had sexual abuse in her childhood, in her teen years. She was sex trafficked. She was abused by Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew, lots of other men, just a constant stream of sexual assault, and then in a marriage where there was domestic abuse. So the idea of her committing suicide, it's incredibly tragic, and I wish it hadn't ended like that, but I do think it makes sense. I mean, she also went through a car crash. It's awful. And she describes in the book what it is like to live with her complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and how it can happen all the time, and it's physically debilitating as well as psychologically debilitating. Early in the memoir, there is a scene where she's at the Louvre and has an episode. She's triggered. And I think because she spent so much time at the ages of 17, 18, and 19 with Epstein, being sex trafficked, I think it's very difficult for her to go a day without being triggered because she has so many of these awful memories. It's a hard book to read. It's an important book because I think you gain a lot of insights about how these things happen and how easy it is to fall victim, how this is not at all the victim's fault, how easy it is for this to happen. And I think it was very brave to mine her trauma like this. And she worked with a ghostwriter, and I have enormous respect for the arduous process she went through to get this story out here. It's awful. It is absolutely terrible. I would like people to release the Epstein files. And I think that one part of this book's legacy is that the calls for that will be even more intensified, right? And I mean, there are references to parties that Jeffrey Epstein went to where lots of famous people are there, right? We know that she actually got the job with Epstein, she was sex trafficked by him. He found her through her work at Mar-a-Lago. She was working at Mar-a-Lago. So at the very least, it's one of those things where, I mean, I suspect, allegedly, I mean, I don't want to get sued by the president, but I very much suspect Donald Trump did horrible things to women with Jeffrey Epstein. But even if he didn't, Epstein was recruiting people for his sex trafficking ring at Mar-a-Lago. And that's something as a business owner that you should take very seriously. And if that did happen without your knowledge, you should be apologizing for that. You should be talking about what protocols you're going to put into place to make sure that never happens again, at the very least, right? If I owned a business where something like that happened, it would destroy me. I just have to say, just destroy me. So anyway, it's a book that I think is very important. It's really hard to read. If you are a survivor of sexual violence, know that there's not going to be a single chapter likely where you don't feel triggered somehow. But that doesn't mean it's not worth reading. And I also think that as many men out there should read this as possible. I would really like a lot of men to read this and understand just how easy it is for these types of things to happen to teen girls.
Oh, well said. I am very afraid of being triggered reading it because even just the bits that I've seen online are so hard to digest. We really cleansed this for you guys who are listening, but it's pretty tough. But I agree with you. It's really essential reading. And I love your thought that all men should have to read it. I really wish that were the case. I really wish this was mandatory reading because you're so spot on. And yet I fear that it will be mostly women picking up this book, but I think it's important. I think more will probably come to the surface over the next little while. I'm also so glad that it came out. I'm fascinated too, Sarah. Is it true? Do you know that she said she wanted it published in the event of her death, just in case?
So, I mean, that's interesting. And I mean, I believe that is true. And which makes me wonder if she sort of sacrificed herself.
Yeah.
And that would be incredibly tragic if she felt like she had to do that. That's Shakespearean, just sort of, I have to die so that maybe there is some sort of truth that comes to the surface. But having said that, while I deeply wish, just as her ghostwriter does, that this woman had not committed suicide, it's tragic, it's horrible that this in the moment felt to her what she had to do. There is a huge legacy that this person has. I mean, the Duke of York has now given up his titles that they're talking about in Parliament about completely revoking them. There is a conversation about Epstein that continues to this day in a very high profile way. People are spreading awareness about sex trafficking. I have to say, even when I was doing my master's in gender studies at the London School of Economics in 2008 and 2009, there was this weird perception that sex trafficking was mostly consensual and that everyone had agency. And I think in part it's because the people who, and sometimes it is consensual. I'm not trying to say that sex work is never consensual. Sometimes it is. But A, it can't be if you're a child. Virginia Giuffre was. And B, the people that we are most likely to hear from who have survived these situations, who will say, oh yeah, it's often consensual, are the people who, yes, they survived. They didn't have a bad experience. If you had a bad experience, right, you might not live to tell the tale. So I think that it's really important to hear an articulate person who survived explain, I survived, but it wasn't consensual, because there are a lot of situations like this. And a lot of what people said to Virginia Giuffre was, why didn't you leave, right? Why didn't you go? It must have been consensual. You had agency. Well, a teenage girl doesn't really, right? A teenage girl who was chosen because she was vulnerable, which Epstein did. He chose vulnerable girls who were runaways, often hadn't had the privilege of finishing high school, had a history of sexual abuse, right? He chose them because they didn't have a lot of power or agency. They didn't have a mom who called them every day to ask, where are you? And who would send them money for a plane ticket if they needed to come home, if they got themselves in a bad situation, right? He chose people who didn't have a choice.
Yeah. And I mean, she was so young. She was groomed. She was manipulated by not just Jeffrey, but also Ghislaine and whoever the hell else they had on their icky team. So it's a lot like any kind of domestic abusive situation, right? It's not so easy to just get up and leave. And I'm certain, and Sarah, maybe you can verify this after you're done the book, but that these two probably threatened her about revealing anything or about leaving, and having her in their fold was probably more secure for them, I presume. So it's all just so disturbing. We can't really make a guess, right?
Well, they also wanted to use her as a surrogate.
Right.
Ghislaine and Jeffrey.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So that was another reason they were keeping her in the fold, because she was there for a while. And I mean, it just gets more and more horrifying.
It's a can of worms.
Yeah. The things they were trying, the fact that they lied to her about the ectopic pregnancy. Ugh. Then they tried to convince her to have a baby with them. But I mean, you just know that they would have taken the baby away, right? Like,
totally.
They said that she would have been given a mansion and nannies and she'd basically be the mother, but that's not the way it would have gone. So she was able to escape at least that.
Yeah. And which also gives even more color to why she was so desperate to sort out the custody situation with her children, with her husband. Like, it's just all so beyond devastating. Very, very tragic life. And I feel like the least we can do is read her book or give spotlight to the book and hear what she had to say. And I second you, Sarah. Release the fucking Epstein files. We deserve it. And that's this week's episode. A big one. Thank you to all of our gorgeous listeners. You can listen to The Reheat for free on the Seeker app. You can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me at _Sadaf Hassan. Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me on Instagram at Sahiki and Sarah. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. And if you would like us to keep growing, we would love for you to support us at patreon.com/thereheat, where we've got a lot of goods in store for you. Thanks for listening.